Folks, let me tell you, what's coming after November is going to be huge. Believe me. You think you know what's happening, but Walmart and all the major retailers are gearing up for some serious changes that could absolutely shock you. We're talking about devastating shortages and economic policies that could hit your wallet harder than ever before. What you don't know right now, it could leave you completely unprepared. Today, we're going to dig deep into what Walmart and the government are keeping quiet about and why you need to be ready. Stay tuned, because the truth coming out might just leave you terrified, but not in a good way. Let's get into it. Number 1. The hidden threat of economic shortages. All right, let's start with the elephant in the room. The hidden threat of economic shortages. Walmart, the giant of retail, is currently facing some serious challenges thanks to economic instability. And let me tell you, these aren't small potatoes. We're looking at the potential for severe shortages in the coming months that could impact each and every one of us. As the fall season unfolds, experts are raising red flags about disruptions that could heavily impact the supply chain. And when the supply chain gets disrupted, what happens? You guessed it, widespread shortages of essential goods across the United States. Millions of households rely on Walmart as their primary source for groceries and household items. If Walmart is struggling, so are you and me. Now, recent reports are spilling the beans on what Walmart is doing behind the scenes. They're not just sitting back and hoping for the best. No. They're taking precautionary measures to address these possible shortages. Walmart is actively increasing its inventory of key items like canned foods, pasta, and rice. This isn't just about dealing with immediate supply chain issues. It's about preparing for what could be a prolonged period of economic instability. This move to stockpile essential goods, it's a clear sign that there's a deeper concern within the retail industry. We're talking about the possibility of a sustained shortage of everyday necessities that could disrupt daily life for millions of Americans. So, why are these shortages looming? The reasons are complex and multifaceted, but let me break it down for you. First, we've got significant global supply chain issues. These are being exacerbated by geopolitical tensions, natural disasters, and economic policies that are just not working for the American people. Take the COVID-19 pandemic, for example. It already showed us how fragile our supply chains can be, causing delays and shortages that we're still dealing with today. And it doesn't stop there. Ongoing geopolitical conflicts are disrupting trade routes and driving up shipping costs. This makes it more difficult and expensive for retailers like Walmart to keep their shelves stocked with the usual inventory levels we're all used to. But that's not all. Economic experts are pointing to the rising cost of raw materials as another critical factor contributing to these potential shortages. As the cost of production goes up, suppliers are struggling to produce and distribute goods at the volume and price we expect. Think about items with complex supply chains, like electronics. These require multiple components sourced from various regions around the world. As these costs rise, guess who feels it? That's right, us, the consumers. Higher production costs are passed down to us, leading to higher prices and fewer products available on the shelves. And let's not forget the government's role in all this. There's a lot being kept under wraps, and why? To protect their interests, not ours. They're not telling you the whole story about what's really happening behind the scenes. Walmart's stockpiling efforts are just the tip of the iceberg. If you're not prepared, you could find yourself without the essentials you need to get by. It's time to wake up and take action. Start stocking up on those key items now, because waiting until it's too late. That's a mistake you don't want to make. Walmart and other major retailers are taking steps to brace themselves. But what about you? Are you ready to face the challenges that lie ahead? Don't be left in the dark. Now, I've got to ask for a quick favor. If you're finding this discussion enlightening, smash that like button. Your likes and comments not only mean the world to us, they also help more people get informed. And if you haven't already, consider watching the whole video to support our channel. We really value your engagement, and it helps us keep bringing you these deep dives into what's happening around the world. Thank you for being part of our community. Folks, we've got this massive labor shortage hitting our supply chain hard. It's happening across so many sectors, but let me tell you, the transportation industry is feeling the pinch like never before. Truck drivers, port workers, they're disappearing faster than you can say Great America. When we don't have enough people behind the wheel or manning the ports, even if the goods are ready and waiting, there's just no one to move them from the ports to the warehouses and then to your local Walmart. It's a total bottleneck, folks. Imagine trying to get your favorite products out to the stores, but you're stuck in traffic. Only it's not traffic, it's a complete standstill. This leads to delays. And what happens when there are delays? Exactly. Fewer items on the shelves. Essential goods become scarce, and nobody likes that. Now let's talk about Walmart's strategy here. They're not just sitting back and hoping for the best. No. They're proactively stockpiling goods because they know there's a real threat of strikes at our key US ports. A strike could shut down port operations completely, and that's a disaster waiting to happen. Importing goods would be severely delayed, and we all know how bad that can get, especially for perishable items or things that don't last long on the shelf. Spoilage becomes a huge risk. So, Walmart is smart. They're focusing on stocking up non-perishable items that can sit on the shelves for longer periods without going bad. It's all about being prepared, folks. We need to make sure that when there's a disruption, we're not left empty-handed. And let's not forget about inflation. It's a huge problem right now, hitting retailers like Walmart hard. As prices go up, what does that mean for consumers? Their purchasing power goes down. People can't afford to buy as much as they used to, and that's bad news for everyone. It's not just about individual wallets getting lighter, it's a chain reaction. When consumers spend less, retailers see their sales drop, and managing inventory becomes a nightmare. Walmart is caught in a tough spot. If they stock too much, they could end up with wasted resources and unsold goods if people aren't buying as much. But if they don't stock enough, they risk missing out on sales and not meeting the needs of customers when things get tight. This is why Walmart has to walk a fine line. They need to balance the risk of overstocking against the danger of understocking. It's a delicate dance, but they're up to the challenge. By keeping a close eye on global trends and staying ahead of the curve, Walmart is making sure they're ready for whatever comes next. They're not just reacting to problems, they're anticipating them and adjusting their strategies accordingly. It's proactive, it's smart, and it's exactly what we need in today's unpredictable world. Number 2, surging prices and the declining value of your dollar. Folks, let me tell you, the declining value of the US dollar is a huge issue. Believe me, it's something that affects every single one of us, right down to the everyday guy and gal walking into Walmart or any other big retailer. Now, we're seeing inflation rise like never before, and it's hitting every corner of the consumer market. The dollar's purchasing power has taken a massive hit, down by about 25% over the past few years. That's right, the same amount of money you used to spend is now buying significantly fewer goods. It's unbelievable. Why is this happening? Well, it's a combination of things, folks. First off, the government has been printing money like there's no tomorrow. This excessive money printing is devaluing our hard-earned dollars. On top of that, our national debt is skyrocketing. It's absolutely out of control. And let's not forget about the economic policies that have been in place. They're not fostering sustainable economic growth. Instead, they're contributing to this downward spiral. It's a total disaster for our economy and for American families. Now let's break it down. The impact of a declining dollar isn't just some abstract economic theory. It's real, tangible, and it's hitting home. Take a trip to Walmart, for example. When you go to buy groceries, you're not just paying for the cost of the items themselves. No way. You're also paying for all those embedded costs that have shot up thanks to inflation. We're talking about higher production costs, more expensive shipping, and increased distribution expenses. Manufacturers and suppliers are facing higher costs for raw materials and transportation. And guess who's footing the bill? That's right, the retailers like Walmart, who then pass those costs straight on to us, the consumers. This is why a small cart of groceries today might come out with a total that shocks you at checkout. It's not just the items you're buying, it's the compounding of increased costs throughout the entire supply chain. And it's not stopping there. Inflation tends to snowball. When consumers like you and me notice prices rising, we start buying more than we need, just in case prices go up even more. This behavior, known as panic buying, creates artificial shortages, which in turn drives prices even higher. It's a vicious cycle, folks. Retailers, including big names like Walmart, find themselves in a tough spot. They need to raise prices not only to cover their higher costs, but also to manage inventory levels against these unpredictable buying patterns. It's a balancing act that is getting harder and harder to maintain every day. And it doesn't end there. We have external factors making this situation even worse. Global supply chain disruptions are a big part of the problem. Add in geopolitical tensions, and you've got a recipe for disaster. Imagine a key supplier facing political instability or natural disasters. Boom, the flow of goods is disrupted. This leads to scarcity and skyrocketing costs. The ripple effects of these disruptions are felt all the way down to the consumer level. Combine a weaker dollar with constrained supply, and you're looking at significantly higher prices at the checkout counter. Walmart, being a major importer of goods, especially from countries facing these kinds of disruptions, is particularly vulnerable. This means we're seeing sharp price increases on the shelves. It's frustrating, folks. Absolutely frustrating. And let's not overlook how the declining value of the dollar affects Walmart's pricing strategy. When the dollar weakens, imported goods become more expensive, and Walmart has to adjust their prices accordingly. It's a chain reaction that impacts all of us, plain and simple. Let me tell you, folks, when we talk about a weaker dollar, we're really talking about some serious stuff that hits right in your pocket. Believe me, it's huge. Let's break it down. When the dollar isn't strong, importing goods becomes a real headache. Take Walmart, for example, one of the greatest retailers out there. They have to spend more dollars to get the same amount of foreign currency just to buy goods from overseas. It's like trying to buy a luxury car with pennies. It just doesn't work. And guess what? Those extra costs, they don't stay with Walmart. No way. They pass it straight on to you, the consumer. So, whether you're grabbing the latest electronics, some trendy clothing, or even basic food items, you're gonna see those prices climb. It's a sad reality, folks. As the dollar keeps weakening, these prices aren't going to stop rising. They're just going to keep hitting your wallets harder and harder. It's like a relentless march of costs, and it's only getting tougher. Now, let's talk inflation. It's a tricky beast because it doesn't hit everything the same way. Simple, basic necessities like food and energy, they take the biggest punch. Why? Because no matter what, people need to eat and keep their lights on. Demand for these things stays strong, so when prices go up, they go up big time. It's not fair, folks. Not fair at all. But then you've got discretionary items. Things like electronics or clothing. These might see more variable pricing. Sometimes they stay stable, sometimes they go up a bit. But here's the kicker. When you're already spending more on the essentials, you've got less money left over for the nice-to-haves. And that's a problem. People tighten their belts, spend less on non-essentials, and that's bad news for businesses that rely on consumer spending. It's a domino effect, folks. Less spending on clothes means fewer jobs in the fashion industry. Less buying of electronics means fewer jobs in tech. And it all slows down the economy. It's a vicious cycle. For Walmart shoppers, this means something important. Even if you notice some prices aren't changing much, the total cost of your shopping trip is going up. It's not just about one item. It's the whole basket getting heavier. And as inflation spreads through more parts of the economy, more products get hit. Take something as simple as packaging. It might seem minor, but packaging costs are rising too because materials and transportation are getting more expensive. These hidden costs add up, and by the time you're at the checkout, you're paying more than before. It's frustrating, no doubt about it. Now, Walmart and other big retailers are trying to fight back. They're optimizing their supply chains, negotiating better deals with suppliers, and using technology to cut operational costs. All smart moves, believe me. But let's be real. When you've got fundamental economic pressures like a declining dollar and rising inflation, there's only so much you can do. These retailers can only mitigate the impact so far. The truth is, prices are likely to keep rising. It's a tough pill to swallow, but we need to face it head-on. California's economic policies are creating a huge mess for our food supply across the entire United States. Believe me, nobody knows more about strong economies and keeping food affordable than I do. Let's dive into number 3, the impact of California's economic policies on food availability. It's a big deal, folks. A tremendous issue that's affecting millions of Americans every single day. First off, California is the powerhouse of American agriculture. We're talking about one of the most vital agricultural hubs in the country. They produce a massive portion of the fruits, vegetables, nuts, and dairy products that we all love and depend on nationwide. It's unbelievable how much California contributes to our national food supply. But here's the problem. Recent legislative changes and economic policies in California are stirring up uncertainties that could totally disrupt this crucial supply chain. And let me tell you, when that happens, everybody feels it. Prices go up, availability goes down, and who suffers the most? The hard-working American families trying to put food on the table. One major policy change that's causing a lot of headaches is California's new law allowing non-citizens to purchase homes with zero down payments. Now, I get it, they're trying to address housing issues, which is important, but this policy has some unintended consequences, folks. It's creating a huge push to develop more land for residential use. More housing means less land available for farming. And when you reduce the amount of farmland, you're directly hitting California's ability to produce those essential crops. That means less food is available for the national market. And guess who ends up paying the price? The American consumer. It's a classic case of short-sighted policies hurting the very people they're supposed to help. But wait, there's more. California is pushing these so-called price gouging laws. They're designed to prevent businesses from raising prices excessively during emergencies, which sounds good in theory. But in reality, these laws are creating even more complications. Farmers and suppliers are facing increased production costs due to labor shortages, water restrictions, and a whole bunch of other local regulations. They simply can't adjust prices to cover these skyrocketing costs because of these strict laws. What happens next? Financial strain. Farmers might decide to plant less, or worse, leave the industry entirely. When farmers leave, production decreases, and that tightens the food supply even further. It's a vicious cycle, folks, and it's completely avoidable with smarter policies. Now let's talk about California's stringent environmental regulations. They're aiming to reduce water usage and protect local ecosystems, which I agree sounds important. But the reality is, these regulations are placing tremendous pressure on the agricultural sector. Water scarcity has been a persistent issue in California, and recent droughts have only made things worse. Farmers are being forced to reduce water-intensive crops or invest in expensive irrigation technologies. These investments drive up costs and reduce yields. When yields go down, so does the overall output of the state's farms. Less produce means less food available for shipment across the country, and that's bad news for everyone. And don't even get me started on California's ports. They play a crucial role in our national food supply chain. California is a significant entry point for imported goods, and any policy that affects port operations can have a cascading impact on food availability. The state's focus on implementing stricter emissions regulations for trucks and shipping vessels is driving up compliance costs. These costs are inevitably passed down the supply chain, resulting in higher transportation fees for goods moving in and out of California. Combine that with labor shortages at ports and among truck drivers, and you have delays in the distribution of perishable goods. The end result? Food spoilage and waste before these items even reach the shelves of stores like Walmart. It's a disaster, folks, and it's all because of misguided policies that don't take into account the real-world consequences. California's agricultural policies, believe me, they're a disaster. A total disaster. Not only are they dictating what gets grown, but also how it's harvested, And let me break it down for you. The state has some of the highest labor costs in the entire nation. Why? Because of those outrageous minimum wage increases and those overreaching labor protections. Now, don't get me wrong, I love hardworking Americans, but these policies, while they might sound good on paper, they're actually hurting our farmers big league. These regulations are supposed to improve working conditions for farm workers. Noble goal, absolutely. But here's the kicker. They're also driving up operational costs for our farmers. When wages go up, guess what happens? The cost of harvesting crops skyrockets. And who pays the price? That's right, the consumers. At the checkout counter, you're seeing higher prices on your favorite fruits and veggies. It's a total scam. Take Walmart, for example, huge retailer, relies heavily on California's agricultural output. These increased costs? They don't stay with the farmers. No, they get passed right along to the shelves. Fewer choices for you, the customer, and higher prices. It's a lose-lose situation, folks. Our great retailers are squeezed, and you're left with less variety and more expensive groceries. It's a total disaster for everyday Americans. But wait, there's more. The introduction of new taxes and fees, like the proposed carbon tax aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions, are just adding insult to injury. Sure, sustainability and environmental responsibility are important, but these economic measures are putting an unbearable strain on our farmers and suppliers. They're already dealing with high labor costs, and now they have to juggle these extra financial burdens. It's like adding fuel to the fire. These taxes and fees are pushing production and transportation costs even higher. Farmers are being squeezed from all sides, and what happens next? Reduced production capacity, higher prices for consumers nationwide. It's making food less affordable and less available, which is unacceptable. We need policies that support our farmers, not policies that drive them out of business and make our food system weaker. And let's talk about the real threat looming on the horizon: supply chain disruptions and strikes. Number 4 on our list, folks, and it's a big one. The potential for widespread strikes at U.S. ports is a massive risk to the stability of our supply chains. And this isn't just about delayed shipments. It's much bigger than that. Ports are the lifeblood of our global trade network. handling about 90% of all goods entering the United States. If a strike happens, it could shut down this flow entirely. Imagine massive delays, empty store shelves, and soaring costs across every sector, from food to electronics to automotive parts. It's a nightmare scenario. These port strikes usually stem from unresolved labor disputes, wages, benefits, working conditions, you name it. Recently, there's been a lot of tension between port workers and employers, especially over automation. Automation is threatening job security for many dock workers, and that's causing a lot of anger and frustration. The International Longshore and Warehouse Union, ILWU, and the Pacific Maritime Association, PMA, have been at loggerheads over contract negotiations, with automation being a major sticking point. If they can't reach an agreement, we could see a full-blown strike shutting down operations at major West Coast ports like Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Oakland. What does that mean for us? The unloading of cargo would halt, leading to massive backlogs of container ships. This would create cascading delays throughout the entire supply chain. Products wouldn't move, businesses would suffer, and the economy would take a big hit. It's a recipe for disaster, and we need to address these issues head-on before it's too late. Big players like Walmart are stepping up in a tremendous way. They're not just sitting around waiting for things to go south. No, they're taking proactive, smart measures to ensure everything runs smoothly. It's fantastic, really. First off, Walmart and other major retailers are ramping up their inventory levels of non-perishable goods and essential items. This is huge because these are the products that people rely on every single day. Think canned goods, toiletries, cleaning supplies. By stockpiling these essentials, Walmart ensures that even if there's a disruption, customers won't be left high and dry. It's all about being prepared. And let me tell you, preparation is key to success. But they're not stopping there. Walmart is also looking into alternative routes and innovative methods for transporting goods. For example, they're considering air freight to bypass those potentially jammed up ports. Now, I know air freight is more expensive, no doubt about that. But when you have high-value or urgently needed products, speed matters. It's a smart move because it gets products to shelves faster, keeping everything flowing smoothly despite any port issues. Sure, air transport has its limitations with capacity and costs, but sometimes you need that rapid solution to keep things moving. Another brilliant strategy Walmart is using is diversifying their supplier base. Instead of putting all their eggs in one basket, relying heavily on, say, Chinese manufacturers, they're spreading their sourcing across a wider range of countries and regions. Countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico are becoming key players in their supply chain. This diversification isn't just about avoiding labor disputes. It's also a shield against other potential disruptions like natural disasters or geopolitical tensions. It's all about reducing dependency on any single port or geographic area, which makes their supply chain more resilient and reliable. Smart thinking. Really smart. Now let's talk about the ripple effects of strikes. It's not just about what's happening at the ports. Strikes can cause massive delays inland, leading to congestion in warehouses and distribution centers. When goods are stuck at the ports, trucks and trains that usually move products across the country face significant delays. It creates a bottleneck effect. Everything slows down, deliveries are late, and costs go up because companies are scrambling for limited trucking and rail services. This isn't just bad news for transportation, it affects storage too. Companies have to hold more inventory in transit and in warehouses for longer periods, driving up costs across the board. And the economic impact? It's serious. Prolonged port strikes could lead to higher prices and delayed shipments. Retail giants like Walmart might face stockouts of essential items, leaving customers dissatisfied and potentially turning them away. Imagine not finding what you need on the shelves. Frustrating, right? In the worst-case scenario, consumers might turn to smaller retailers or online platforms with different supply chains, which could hurt Walmart's market share and profitability. It's a domino effect that can shake up the entire retail landscape. Let's not forget about food products, especially perishables. Even a short delay can lead to spoilage, reducing the quality and availability of food items on the shelves. It's not just an inconvenience, it's a real issue affecting people's daily lives. And beyond the immediate economic concerns, there's a significant environmental and social impact to consider. Increased transportation costs mean higher carbon emissions, and holding more inventory means more energy used in warehouses. It's a complex web of consequences that smart companies like Walmart are navigating with foresight and strategy. Folks, let me tell you, these prolonged port strikes, believe me, they're a disaster waiting to happen. When ships are stuck out there, idling offshore, they're not just wasting time, they're pumping out emissions like you wouldn't believe. We're talking about serious air pollution here, folks, and it's hitting our beautiful coastal communities hard. We all love our beaches and our clean air, but these strikes are putting that at risk. It's just terrible. Now let's talk about the workers. These hard-working folks on strike, they're facing real financial hardships. Many families depend on these jobs to keep their heads above water. When the strike drags on, it's not just the workers, it's the entire local economy that takes a hit. Businesses that rely on port activities, they're struggling, folks. Reduced economic activity means fewer jobs, less money circulating in our communities, and that's just not acceptable. Resolving these port strikes is a nightmare because there are so many players involved. We've got labor unions, port authorities, shipping companies, and government agencies, all with their own agendas. It's like herding cats, believe me. Unions want better wages and job security for their members, and that's important. But port authorities and shipping companies have to keep their operations running smoothly and stay competitive in the global market. It's a tough balance, folks, and negotiations are anything but simple. And let's not forget about the consumers. When there's a strike and the supply chain gets disrupted, prices can skyrocket. We're talking about potential price gouging here. Some businesses might take advantage of the situation, raising prices on essential goods so people can't afford them. That's just wrong. Families are already feeling the pinch with rising prices and economic uncertainty, and this only makes things worse. What can we do? We need to be smart, monitor prices, buy strategically, and stock up on non-perishable items when prices are stable. It's common sense, folks, and it can help mitigate these nasty effects. Big retailers like Walmart are stepping up too. They're lobbying for government intervention to prevent these strikes from spiraling out of control. We need strong leadership here. Government can help facilitate negotiations or even implement temporary measures. Take the Taft-Hartley Act, for example. It allows the federal government to step in when strikes threaten national health or safety. It's a powerful tool, but using it isn't easy. It's controversial because it's all about balancing workers' rights with the economic needs of our great country. In the end, we need solutions that keep our ports running, protect our environment, support our workers, and ensure that our economy stays strong and competitive. It's all about making America great again. And that means tackling these port strikes head-on with smart, effective strategies. Together, we can overcome these challenges and keep our nation moving forward. Thank you, and let's keep fighting for what's right. Stay informed and prepared as these developments unfold. We sincerely appreciate you joining us today.